So
100 psi,
101, right? So this happens in every house every day. Thermal expansion. It's thermal expansion is what it's called. I heat water, water increases in volume, water increases in pressure, and it will increase until it can find a way to relieve itself. Okay. So the normal thing, and what's always happened, is this: that it would just increase until it became stronger than the city, and then it would just push back into the city, and that happens in every house. Happens all the time, and it happens every time. Every house that has a tank heater, every time it comes on, it happens every time the pressure builds, and then it finds a way to get out, and this is the normal way it always did. Okay, so that was typical stuff that always happened. The problem becomes, how many people have heard of a backflow?
Oh, me.
Okay, so what is a backflow device? A backflow device is a way for us to protect the city water from being contaminated. So what a backflow device is something we put right here that says, I will allow the water to go this way, but no way can water go back that way. It is impossible. And there can be, if anything ever nefarious ever happened inside of this house, conceivably you could poison the city water supply if you knew how to do it, and I could tell you how to do it if you want to know, but I won't tell you. But if we put something nasty in the water here and put the pressure up really high, it would push back into the city. Now Mrs. Johnson, your neighbor, would be poisoned or whatever. So we don't go there. But so the problem becomes now, Mrs. Mrs. Johnson deserves it. What?
Where does the water go when it hits the backflow? Like when it stops it, what does it do with it? Where does it go?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the problem, right? So backflow device says, you ain't going that way. You can go in, but you can't come out. So now, where we used to have this water come up at 101, it would come back into the city. Now at 101, it says, I don't care how strong you are, you ain't going nowhere. And then it keeps going, 105, 110, 150, 120. It's going to go as high as it needs to go until it finds a way to relieve itself. Okay? Or the heater turns off. Or someone opens up a faucet. Some way that pressure's got to escape. So backflows become a real problem. So the original code, or the original thought was, any house that has a backflow, you have to have this device. And then it became, oh no, we're going to go one better than that. Any house that has a regulator, which almost every house in San Diego has a regulator, now you have to have that device. Just in case. So what it's saying is, we can't rely on this natural release of pressure. We have to do it another way. So we have this device. So what happens here? This is all air. Okay? And I put this on this system, right, like this. Hopefully I get this thing in here.
Just
Hopefully
thread it on.
just screw it in. I got you. It's not on there. It's good. Okay, so now what happens? So now I can't rely on that, but I'm still going to have pressure building up. Okay, so this became code. So now what does this thing do? So now what happens is, so here's our system. So we had 60 pounds of pressure coming into 60 pounds of water pressure. So we set the air in here at 60 pounds of pressure. We match the water pressure to the air pressure. Okay. So now our water heater comes on, and what do we know will happen when our water heater comes on? It expands and increases pressure, okay? But this thing, the difference is now I have 60 pounds of air sitting there, and when the water gets to 61 pounds of water pressure, it can push against that air pocket, right? So that, because I can take that air pocket and I can make it smaller, right? Mm-hmm. We agreed we can compress. So as soon as the pressure of the water becomes more than the pressure of the air, inside that thing, we're just going to push, the water will push into that tank and push that bladder and make it smaller and smaller and smaller. Cool with that? Does it make sense? Because I can squeeze air, I can't squeeze water. So now, instead of us building up this enormous, exorbitant amount of pressure, as soon as it's greater than the air pressure, it'll just squeeze that air, and we lose that big spike of pressure. It's just gonna, right, cool with that? It's just gonna compress air, and it's stable. So what this thing does is stabilize the system. The way it was before we had these, what would happen in a house is you would have 60 pounds, and this would come on, and it would go to 80, and then in our example, it'd go to 90, and then it'd go to 100, and then it'd go to 101, then it would release. But you would have this going every time that, so you'd have these huge spikes of pressure inside of a house with water trying to get out. It would happen all day, every day. Well, every time the heater came on, this thing would happen. And you'd get massive amounts of pressure inside that house, which is not good for it, right? So what used to happen is, so a lot of times we'll get calls for, this toilet runs all the time. It's not the toilet. It's, right? It's your house that gets, all of a sudden it's 120 pounds of pressure in your house. That water's looking for a way to get out. Oh, look, I found a way. I can get out through the toilet. I can turn the toilet on. Cool, let's go. There used to be, back in the day, when we didn't care about water, a couple things we used to do. We used to have fill valves in toilets that were designed to accommodate this problem. We didn't care about water. So what would happen is every time the heater would come on, your toilet would run. It would fill up. It would just run. It was relieving the pressure. It was designed that way. That's how it was designed. So that I have mass pressure spikes, and so we just flush it down the toilet. Who cares? Okay? Or they had valves that went in the front of your house that would just, when the pressure would build, it would just spill water in your front yard. Who cares? We didn't care about water. Now we care. Now we can't do that, right? We can't just randomly be throwing water around. So this idea came up of, okay, compressing air, it'll solve that problem. It'll stabilize that system so we don't have these big, huge spikes. So when we know, and then if you really think about thermal expansion and what happens, I think it's a big reason we have, obviously, toilets break down, faucets leak. Slab leaks is a big thing. I guarantee you, 30, 40, 50, whatever it is, there's a number of slab leaks that occur because of pressure changes like that.
So when the water expands, it goes in there, and then when it calms down, does it
Comes back out.
And back in?
It's just pushing against the diaphragm. As soon as the pressure stabilizes, water comes back out.
Goes back into the tank.
Goes, and we're, you're talking about maybe a couple. It doesn't, right? It's not a whole lot of water. It's not much, but it's enough.
But if it has nowhere to go.
It has nowhere to go. It's got to do something, and so it's got to get out. So it just presses against that, and okay. So our challenge becomes 5 years ago. That code was not enforced, ever. It was always been in the code, it's never enforced. So 99% of the homes in San Diego don't have that. And now every home that has a tank and a regulator, is required to have that. So whatever it is, 90% of the homes are required to have it and don't have it. So every time we go in to change a water heater now, that's something we're having to add almost every time, because no one's, and then you have to explain to them, and they go, well, why do I got to have that? Well, because it's a code now, right? Well, I never had it before. Oh, okay, well.
When did that become code? Do you know?
It was always in the code. It never became enforced until it was about 5 years ago they started talking about if it has a backflow, and then a couple of years ago they came out and said, no, if it has a regulator. Got it. So now it includes, now you just, every home in San Diego's got it. So one of the things when we're talking about water heaters with customers is we say, here's the price starts at this, and it does include any code upgrades. Okay. So that was a code upgrade that came into a few years ago. This is a code upgrade that came in, and it's all about protection. It's all a good idea, but it's just protection. But the problem becomes, well, I never had it before. Well, okay, well.
Is there a brand of water heater where that's built into the
No.
actual piece?
No.
Really?
No. No, probably a good idea, right? And maybe, probably someday they might do it. Yeah, I guess you could. These things can go bad. They can leak. And so we'll know, like you have that and all of a sudden you still have this going on. That tank's bad, okay? And so we change the tank, because it's just rubber bladder and it'll leak. So this is what you see when we install a water heater. You'll see that now all the time, virtually.
So when your toilet leaks or runs, you should probably check your pressure first.
Always. That's why one of the, what's the water pressure? I mean, here's what I always tell the guys. When you go to the doctor, what's the first thing they do?
Your vitals.
They check your vitals. They want to know your blood pressure. Why? Because if you got a health problem, if your blood pressure is 200 over 160 or whatever, right? It's like, oh, holy lordy, right?
That's why.
Right? We got to look at that. Mm-hmm. Same thing. If the pressure is way out of whack, all kinds of crazy stuff can happen. Let's get this under control, and then we can talk about the rest of it. So, the same thing with plumbing, anything, leaky faucet, noises, whatever. This toilet runs all.
Pipes rattle in the wall?
Sure. Excessive pressure can do all kinds of crazy stuff. It's just you got massive amounts of pressure in that system, and it can do whatever it wants, right? It can do all kinds of crazy stuff. Okay, we're cool with that.
Yeah.
So we understand thermal expansion. So the question is, how often does thermal expansion occur?
Every time the heater's on?
Every time the heater's on. How many homes in San Diego have thermal expansion?
10%.
Every one. If they have a tank water heater, they have thermal expansion. There's no way for you not to have it. If you have hot water and a tank, tankless heaters won't necessarily do it, although it can a little bit, but certainly a tank, anytime. Electrical, gas tank, doesn't matter. You heat water, you create pressure, you create thermal expansion. Every house. Okay.
What about the tankless? I know it's not really about the tankless, but
Well,
how can that's
the reason it does it has a very small holding area of water, but it only heats when you ask for it.
That's what I was
So it
just
has
kinda
to be
clicked
flowing.
on
So the way it works is that thing will sit there until you say, give me 1.3 gallons of hot water right now. And this thing starts spinning over here, and then the water starts flowing through, and that thing is only heating when you're saying, give me 1.3 gallons of hot water right now.
Got it.
And then as soon as you turn that faucet off, it goes, oh, okay, I quit spinning, I'm done. So it happens a little bit, but not. Okay?
Not
But
enough because it's being used automatically.
the only way that can heat is if you're using.
Okay.
So there's no pressure buildups.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you have recirculation in a tankless, then it becomes necessary, because we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Okay. So we're good with that? Okay. So let's talk really quick about straps. Okay.
Earthquake straps.
Okay. Earthquake straps. Okay. Seismic. We're in a seismic zone where we have earthquakes. So one of the fears is what happens if I have this 50-gallon thing out in my garage and the earth starts shaking and it were to fall over. I have gas and I have water, so I have an explosion and I have a flood, or I have flood and explosion. I have both. So what we have to do is we have to restrain that thing. So, I mean, if it's a crazy earthquake and the house comes down, okay, we're done. But normal, we've all been in an earthquake. We get, right? So we have to prevent that from knocking this thing over. So we have straps. So every tank, basically all we're talking about, we tied it, we connect it to the wall. So every tank in California or in this seismic zone has to have two straps, one here on the top third, one on the bottom third. So if we have a 5.7, it'll wobble, but it won't fall over. And it won't sever the gas line, it won't sever the water lines. And then I think I mentioned last time was, the other thing is if we had a devastating earthquake and that thing was still sitting there and everything, you didn't have access to anything, you got 50 gallons of water if you need it. It's sitting right there. You wouldn't want to drink it, but you could, right? Cool with that? Okay. So then we get the customer calling in and says, my water heater's leaking. How can I shut it down? Right? How can I make that safe?
Shut up out.
Shut up. Okay, so I can turn the water off. Okay. And all these valves now say the handle tells you if the handle's parallel to the pipe, it's on. If it's perpendicular, it's off. Mm-hmm. So we can turn the water off. Okay. How about gas? Okay. Same thing. There's going to be two ways to turn off gas. One is this comes out of the wall. We got a valve. It's on. It's off. It's on. It's off. Okay. So very easy. I can turn the gas off. How else can I turn gas off? On most water heaters, they have a valve. We talked about this. It looks like this. So if you read the top of this, it says on, pilot, off. Okay, so here's our indicator in the front. So normally someone has a water heater, this is what they're going to see. It's on. Okay, you want to light the pilot, you put it over to pilot, and you know you're right because you can press the red button down. And anytime in that I can't press the red button down, but you can just switch that to off. Gas is off. Done. Cool. Then you can drain if you want. Every water heater tank has a hose bib on the bottom of it that you can hook a garden hose up to it and run and drain it out. The problem becomes, we talked about this the other day, what's on the bottom of every tank?
Sediment.
Sediment, okay? So when you go to drain it out, the first thing is a big piece of sediment's going to get in there and it's going to plug it up and you're not going to get any water out of it. Some tanks will drain, some won't. Some will drain really slowly, take forever. So that's the only downside. You may not be able to drain it only because of the sediment. So what we do with what plumbers do is we take that. If we have the water off, we take that thing out, and like a gallon or 2 gallons of water will come out. But then we just clean the sediment out of the way and open up, make a new canal so we can get water out. But sometimes we got to pump them, whatever, because you can't get the water out. But that's so. They want to shut off water, shut off the gas if they want. You don't need to shut off gas. There's safeties, there's protection. It says this thing will protect you, that thing will protect you, this thing will protect you, whatever. People aren't, I'd rather shut my gas off simply. Gas is simple to shut off. Boom, boom, 2 places. And it should be fine. Okay? Easy stuff. Okay? So one last thing, and this is courtesy of Rebecca. She wanted to talk about, we have talked this whole time about gas water heaters, and we have not spoken about electric water heaters. And how can you tell the difference? We talked about that last time. Gas water heater has a vent, and gas water heater has that thing in front. Other than that, they are identical. If you looked at it, if you looked at one from behind, if the vent wasn't on there, and if you look at it, so electric heaters have a TNP, electric heaters have these connectors. Electric heaters require an expansion valve. Electric heaters, everything, they heat water, they all the safety. The only safety they don't have is the thermocouple. Okay. So, and then we talked about gas heaters in garages. Do they have to be on a stand? Do they not have to be on a stand? Because they are FBIR heaters, they don't have to be. They're protected, so legally they can be on the ground. Electric heaters, no. In most jurisdictions, electric heaters have to be on a stand because we have a spark, potentially, because 240 volts, it's high voltage. So if that sparks and it's on the ground, we could start a fire. So electric heaters have to, it's really funny, electric heaters have to be up and protected. Gas heaters don't, even though we got this massive flame down there, but there's no way to protect an electric heater from that.
Is there a live pilot in the electric?
No. We're
Okay.
going to talk really
Okay.
about how it cooks.
I had that question, actually.
Okay, so that is the $1 million question is, okay, how does it make hot water?
Plug it in.
Okay, it plugs it in. So this is a water heater element, okay?
Okay.
And most water heaters, if you have a house that has an electric heater, it has 2 of these, one up on the top and one up on the bottom. So how does it make hot water? So, have you ever looked inside of a toaster? Okay, so what do you see when you look inside of a toaster? You turn it on, what do you see?
Those red coils.
The red coils, okay? So what's happening there?
It's heating up.
Okay, so have you ever heard of resistance? Other than Rebecca giving me resistance all day, every day? Okay. So, yes, the red coil. So what you're looking at an electrical wire. So what do we know about electricity? Electricity moves so fast we can't even.
Yeah, we get it.
We have no idea. It goes a million miles an hour. We don't know how fast it is. It goes a million miles an hour. What do they do in a toaster? And what do they do in here? And what do they do in a toaster oven or an electric range? What do they do? We still have an electrical wire, but we don't have a normal electrical wire. We have an electrical wire that makes electricity will pass through it, but it's not very easy. So we have resistance. Okay? And I think like, don't quote me on this. I think they're made of tungsten. So I think it's tungsten. nonetheless, it will conduct the electricity, but electricity has to earn its way to get through it. So what happens when electricity is trying to go through a wire and it's having a hard time getting through it? It gets really hot. It makes that wire super hot. I'm gonna get through there, but I'm having to work my tail off, so I'm gonna just get blazing hot. So that's what you're seeing. So when you turn that toaster on, and you look inside, you're seeing electricity pass through from one end of that toaster to the other end of the toaster, but it's fighting so hard to do it that it heats that wire up incredibly. So you're watching electricity flow very slowly through this thing, and it's just fighting, just, okay? So this is a water heater element. So inside of this is a toaster wire. Basically, that's what it is. It is, okay? So, but it's encased. It can't be in the water. So this got a covering, so it protects it from that. So when you want, it's the exact same thing as it's a toaster. So
Sounds
this
like
thing
it would take a long time to heat.
well, okay, so exactly right, totally. So why would you want electric heat? Electric heat is super slow, super expensive, super slow, and it's super expensive, and it's super slow. Takes a long time to heat. I want a bucket and a fire, because I can make hot water fast, right? So electric heat is super slow, and I think it's like 3 or 4.
Power goes out, you're really screwed.
Pardon?
Power goes out, you're really screwed.
Totally, right? So it's slow and it's expensive. A lot of houses don't have gas. Everything's electric. So you get that thing. And I think it's probably 3 or 4 times more expensive to heat by electricity than gas. And as a matter of fact, there is a code. So anyone ever heard of Title 24, which is energy conservation, reduce our carbon footprint? Okay. Well, one of the things in there says, if you have a house that has gas, you cannot have an electric heater. It's illegal. It has to be gas, because we know we use less energy to cook with gas than we do with electricity. So how dare you? So you cannot have it. Okay. But now the rub is, what if you got solar?
You're never gonna get hot water.
No, if you have solar, now it doesn't cost you anything. It's even less, now it's less than gas, right? So now, so electric heat will become more and more, electric hot water will become more and more prevalent as you see more solar, because it's like, I don't pay for electricity, so why do I don't even want to pay for the gas, although it's better and faster. That does, right? Cheaper.
So this little guy,
That's just
where
one
does
of
this
them?
go?
It goes right inside the tank, so it's
You
just,
just shove it in?
it just screws right into the tank. So this is just sitting in the water, and one down here, just sitting in the water, and then
But not in the water. It's
Yeah.
protected.
this is in the water.
Oh.
This is wet.
Oh.
The toaster wire is
Is
inside of
inside
this.
that.
And it's
Oh,
protected,
okay.
okay? So all that thing, and so this thing would glow, this thing would glow up other than it's in water. So, but it gets crazy hot.
There's like a light show in there.
It's a light show, total light show. And there's a disco ball, and 50-gallon models have a disco ball. You have to look for it. Special, self-cleaning and disco ball. So that's what it is. So that's it. So it's super slow.
So where it would take, let's say, 2 minutes, to heat up your water, once you turn on your shower, it takes like 2 minutes for it to start to get hot. This will take how many minutes?
It would probably be at least double the time. It's a good question. I should know the answer, and I don't. But now, if you drain the tank, it probably takes 30 minutes to reheat it. Gas, it would take at least an hour with electricity. It's really slow. It's slow, right? I mean, it's very.
Can you add more of these guys in there?
No.
Why?
Well, you'd have to
You
drill
can
the
add
tank.
more anode rods. So
You'd have to drill the tank. You'd have to find a way to get it in there and keep it from leaking. So one of the things, so like commercial heaters, they'll have more, but it's just the voltage that gets sent to it just becomes, it's crazy how much voltage you can get into an electric water heater, commercial. If you want it to cook, I mean, you can get electric commercial heaters that'll cook really fast, but it's 480 volts and 3-phase. I mean, it's just like,
Gnarly.
you're just cruising electricity
So
in
the
there.
BTUs has to do with gas, and the volts have to do with electric.
Absolutely. And we get into, so it's Yeah. You get into kilovolts. Right? I mean,
Kilos.
massive voltage going in there, and watts. I mean, it's just crazy how much, right? The more the faster. Very good.
Well, and it's a safety hazard too. You got electricity and water.
Think about this.
If you've got a freaking earthquake. it's
Right.
gonna
So,
take you out.
so one of the things, electric heaters have two safety devices. Each one of these is protected by a thermostat, which is protected by a safety, which says, do you know what a GFI is? Right? You know what GFI is?
Like a
So,
disposal?
no, well, you'll see it at disposal. So GFI is, so you have an outlet in the house and it has a red button and a black button. You've seen those, okay? So what does that do? It says, I'm going to send electricity out and it better come back identical how it came out. So,
Why?
well, because if I come out and I,
Greedy?
huh?
Greedy? Demanding?
What if I electrocuted somebody? So what it does is protect you from electrocution. So the power comes over here. If I'm here and I get jolted into the ground, so the power that's going back to that thing is not going to be the same. It's going to say, oh, we got a problem, shut.
It's not a closed circuit?
It's going to close the circuit.
Okay.
Okay, it's going to say, no, I lost power somewhere, and John's over here doing this, right? So we can't have that happen. So that's what a GFI is. It kills it. As soon as you somehow power got out of your system, it kills it. It says, whoa, it's not right. Okay? Electric heaters have the same thing. So if this thing were to all of a sudden be exposed to water, boom, killed it. Won't happen, so you can't, right? It's automatic. It's a safety built into it. Says, no more power over there. Johnny's going to get a hot shower.
So do they have to replace those?
Sure.
And they just screw in?
Just screw in, screw out. Easy.
So if you have an electric water heater and you are not producing hot water, that's something that they check? Is if this
First
is-
thing you always check. And the first thing you always check is it been exposed to water? So there's a, you've heard of ohms?
No,
What of ohms?
no,
Never heard of it?
no.
You've heard of ohms.
Maybe
Sounds
homes,
familiar.
but no.
Oh.
So ohms is how you measure resistance, basically. So basically, we're good. So you would basically you're going to test this thing and say, okay, I'm going to put some power here and I'm going to test it right here and it better match. And if it doesn't match, it's no good. So this thing could
Okay.
get a rot and get a hole in it and get exposed to water. And so when we tested it, it would say, no good, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's very simple and it'll kill itself when we take that out. And you'll see it'll be rotten.
Is there an emergency shut-off for electric like there is for gas?
Circuit breaker. So your circuit breaker boxes.
Okay.
It's got an electric water heater
So
will
not
always
like on the,
not on the tank. Although
Okay.
Actually there's a new code now that says we'll get it. So it has to have its own separate breaker in addition to the breaker in the breaker box.
okay,
Um,
I mean, okay.
so it's just So
Yeah.
but if you look at a circuit breaker, if you have electric heater, if you go to a circuit breaker box, it's going to be labeled water heater.
Okay,
Right? So, but now they want you to take it one step further, and because if that's mislabeled, now we still got a problem. So now they're doing, anyone got air conditioning at home? Do you have a condenser outside, a big thing
Yeah.
outside that spins?
Mm-hmm.
Right above the wall, you see a little gray box, okay? In there, if you were to open that up and pull that, there's a thing right there, it has fuses in it. If you pulled that out, the air conditioner wouldn't work.
Oh,
That's a protection device for that air conditioner. So that's why that box is there. So I want to work on that air conditioner. I open that box and I pull that thing out and set it off to the side. Now no way power can get to that thing, so I don't blow myself up. And then when I want to get to, so they do the same thing. So we have a secondary backup safety.
okay. That not many electric water heaters have, right? Because
No, it's a
just
new
started-
code,
yeah,
right?
just
Yeah. Air conditioners always had it. Electric water heaters hardly ever. And someone told me now it's mandatory. So, see, hardly any. We around here we sell 100 gas water heaters a month, and we sell 3 electric, 2 electric, 1 electric. Never. Not many of them out there anymore, because it's inefficient. Except the solar homes, they're doing crazy stuff because why not? Any questions?
What are the two that are out in front of Bill's office?
Those are 100-year-old Rude water heaters.
That's cool.
Those are original design. And if you look at it, and I'll talk to you, nothing's changed. It's still a keg with a fire. They have, you know, it's different, but if I show, you know what, it's
You have to put coal in it.
nothing to change. It was the original idea, let's have a keg and put a fire under it. Put some meat on it. It's all the same. Yeah, you know, the concept has never changed. I mean, how else, how you gonna get better than that? Right, so it's just, you know, that thing, if you were to make that thing now, it'd probably cost you $20,000, right? Right, I mean, right, but, so, cool.
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 Thanks for showing up.
Thanks for
Thank you.
sharing.